Side B begins with the longest track of the album, Warsawa. Warsawa? Warsawa? Sarazawa? I don't know. What I do know is that it's actually the name of Warsaw, the capital city of Poland, so I'm kinda hoping I'm getting the name right to any and all Polish viewers out there. Anyways, this song's another instrumental, and a very eerie one at that, which is indeed saying something. Plus, I do say instrumental a bit loosely in this case, but I'll get to it in a bit. Mainly electronic, with Brian Eno doing all the synths, as well as a bit of piano and Chamberlain, the latter of which is actually a precursor to the Mellotron. And with that in mind, I imagine the flute sound here might be coming from that particular instrument. While the music itself may have been intended to be calming to people listening, the result ends up creating this somber and solemn mood, a sense of desolation, almost like we're alone and wandering aimlessly through this barren city after it's been leveled by some apocalyptic event, like a bombing or something. Then, well over halfway through, we kind of get some vocals from David Bowie. Sort of. Mostly humming similar to the sounds of Buddhist monks, as well as some chanting of what I could describe as pseudo-Polish. It may sound like it's a particular language, but when you actually read and try to look it up, it's basically gibberish. It doesn't really actually translate to anything. So, but with that in mind, while the song as a whole was inspired by a visit to the actual city that Bowie took a few years earlier, this little bit of vocal pseudo-Polish gibberish was apparently influenced by the folk choir music of that particular country. So, David would eventually get a Japanese woman to speak some actual Japanese for a song of his a few years later, but he couldn't find a Polish person to sing some actual Polish here for this song? Huh. But regardless of that, this song here is what I would call a modern musical requiem. It's slow, mysterious, and all around atmospheric. Next is Art Decade, another slow and chilling instrumental piece, though this time much shorter. And much like Warsaw, this too is about a particular location that Bowie himself visited, this time being about West Berlin. The title itself is like a pun or play on words on the term Art Deco, which refers to a certain style of architecture, as well as the phrase Art Decayed, which honestly does fit this musical sensation of slow decay. Once again, Eno plays the Moog, piano, and Chamberlain, very similar to his major contributions to the Genesis album The Lambs Lies Down on Broadway, mainly the waiting room and how surreal and avant-garde it is, with all the strange little sound effects and all. While Bowie plays a bit of guitar and vibraphone, plus a bit of faint but still noticeable cellos from Edward Meyer, all adding a few layers into this melancholy soundscape. The song overall captures what that part of Berlin must have been and felt like, being cut off from the rest of the world, isolated and unsure where to go or what to do. It also sounds like a soundtrack to a 70s sci-fi thriller, which is probably a bit something worth of note, which I'll get into in a bit. After that is Weeping Wall, yet another ambient instrumental song about another location, this time the Berlin Wall itself, and how it may represent to people like Bowie. In fact, he does the guitar, the Chamberlain, the synth, the percussion, pianos, vibraphones, and xylophones all by himself. Now that's dedication and talent, on par with Mike Oldfield. Most of the short track is based on Scarborough Fair, an old English ballad from many years past. And honestly, that brightness is mixed very well with this sinister underline, this undertone, or rather, overtone. Fitting since, like I said, the Berlin Wall is used here to represent the feelings of imprisonment, separation, fragility, and frustration, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people must have felt having to live with this long wall for many years. And something else of note, upon researching these songs, I did find there are a few actual locations called Weeping Wall. One at Cirrus Mountain in Alberta, Canada, and the other located at Glacier National Park in the US state of Montana. Though it's most likely a coincidence of names at all. All in all, Weeping Wall is just another brick in the Bowie wall of sound and music. And so, Low ends with the dark jazz track Subterraneans, bringing the album to a close, as well as the instrumental songs representing a part of Berlin. Art Decade dealing with the West Side, Weeping Wall dealing with the wall itself, and this one dealing with the East Side of Berlin. With more of Brian Eno's strange yet somber synthesizers, as well as some reversed bass and electric piano guitar, this song continues to capture that feeling of dread and misery, and there are even a few bits of saxophone playing, representing that long-gone distant memory and feeling of being free and open, with both yourself and to other people. That all said, there are too a few bits of Bowie vocals here, this time actually singing actual words. Very, very few words. One of the few that come to my mind is "Share bright failing star," likely referring to a sense of futility and scarcity, as if nearly all our resources are all used up and can't be replenished, so we must share in what little we may have left. Again, fitting into the themes of poverty that a couple of people in Berlin must have been going through then. In fact, this piece was first roughly composed back in '75 to be part of a potential soundtrack for the '76 Nicholas Roeg directing David Bowie starring film The Man Who Fell to Earth. But after he withdrew from that aspect, he salvaged this and dedicated it and some of the previous songs to the people suffering in Berlin at the time. And the song itself closes out with one last weepy note from the sax, leaving us on an uncertain and ambiguous note, leaving us to wonder and think about all that has come and passed. And with all that said, Low by David Bowie is a very interesting and unique album from Bowie's discography. It's not exactly poppy and bright as, say, Let's Dance, for instance, nor is it kind of dark and gritty as, say, Black Star. It comes close, but it's clearly Bowie himself trying to experiment with what kind of music he could tackle, especially from trying to get over his addiction at the time. This album would also mark the start of what would be known as the Berlin trilogy of David Bowie albums, with Low and Heroes from 1977 and Lodger from '79. The latter two I'll probably look into sometime down the road, but for now though, David Bowie's Low is an interesting and, dare I say, fantastic album. The first half of the album consisting of very short, fragmented songs that kind of capture this kind of frantic feeling, while the other half deal with feelings of solemnness and depression and go on for quite a long while and are all instrumentally classic. Probably a good song that will come to you that will be good to listen to would be Sound and Vision, since that's the most appealing from the album. It's short and long enough. It's of the proper conventional length of time, and it is probably the most bright and colourful out of the few songs there are to pick of. If you're into the more strange and experimental side of Bowie's albums, I'd say give this one a listen. You might have to be in the right mood to fully enjoy this album as a whole, but if you're still into the dark and grim kind of music, this one's worth a good gander to. Next time we cover a somewhat bigger album, and one from a classic French duo. And let's just say, I've got to do some homework for this one.
Capricorn,
Yes, sir.
I have a mission that I wish you to help me out on.
Fill me in, sir.
Over a week ago, a particular human escaped his captive facility. A champion, a warrior, if you will. And I think you might be the one to help find and seek him out. After all, considering it was I that made you the sole survivor of that attack on Darkfang over 4 years ago, consider this a return of debt. I want you to hunt down Big Jack Films.